Today, I want to talk about one of the biggest things that I came to later than I should have, and that is the importance of building a personal brand outside of your company and your offer. I was always under this impression that as a representative of my company's product, my identity should be tied to the company's identity. For a long time, I underestimated the connection people made with me as a person, and I leaned too much on the company's brand to shape how I presented myself to the world. I think it's common for salespeople to be so wrapped up in being a representative of the product or service they sell that they neglect to develop the best part of what makes the offering so special. And that's you. So I'm going to get into the importance of personal branding in sales, and I'll talk about what you can do to start building yours today on Don't Just Sell. Most sales podcasts give you more tactics. This one proves you don't need them. I'm Rebecca Kilday, and this is Don't Just Sell, the podcast where your sales career gets easier when you quit selling like you've been trained and start selling like yourself. When I worked as a sales rep for a yearbook publisher, that company had a separate but complementary division that sold class rings and graduation products. There was a completely different set of sales reps that sold those products. So it was possible for one of my customers to work with me for yearbooks, but to use another company for class rings, and vice versa. There was always a little tension between these divisions. It was widely accepted that the yearbook reps were the nerds, and the ring reps were the jocks. See, we had a lot of former teachers who became reps on the yearbook side, while they had a lot of former college athletes who became reps on the ring side. Two very different sides of the same coin. There was such a divide that for years, we didn't even attend the national sales meeting at the same time. So dumb. Finally, it was decided that it would make sense for the yearbook reps and the ring reps to work together in some capacity. We were encouraged to share information about shared prospects and customers and to look for opportunities to sign new business together. So I started working more with my ring rep, Chris, who was a former football player from the University of Tennessee. It was during this time I realized a huge difference in the way he was perceived in the schools versus how I was perceived in the same buildings. Chris was recognized as a complete, standalone brand, whereas I was seen as a messenger for my company. People would say, "I work with Chris," instead of the company name. And it was a natural holdover from his time as a college athlete. High-level athletes are, after all, walking brands. He had his own logo and business name outside of our parent companies. He had the freedom to create his own product packaging and pricing. And as an independent representative, he really created a company within the company. This is something that it never occurred to me to do. So I learned a lot about positioning myself differently from Chris. And those lessons proved to be even more valuable when I launched my magazine from scratch years later. See, with that venture, I was the brand. The magazine didn't exist yet, so I had to sell the vision of the magazine without an actual product to show. It was really hard work, and I wish I had been able to meet the moment better, knowing what I know now. But in sales, just like in life, sometimes you have to learn as you go. The more I learned, the more I realized without a strong personal brand, you're just like every other salesperson your prospect spoke to that day. Look, everyone knows their product. Everyone's building rapport. Everyone has their ready responses to objections. So it's your personal brand that sets you apart from your competition. And it's the relationships you build with your customers that sustain your business for the long term. Those relationships are so foundational that they can be what maintains the professional partnership through product struggles and competitive pressure. I can't tell you how many times someone has sat across from me and said, "I'm not sure about this offer," but I trust you, so we're going to move forward. What you bring to the table with your personal brand is so valuable. And not investing in developing it is really doing yourself a disservice. You need to know where you sit within your own identity so that then you can take it from company to company as your career evolves and you sell different products and services. Before I share some practical tips for how you can start your personal branding journey, if you realize you need help developing your own personal brand story outside of your company's, that's exactly what I help women in sales do as part of my 1-to-1 6-week sales coaching program. Sign up with the link in the episode description. Now, I once heard someone say personal branding is the story people tell about you when you're not in the room. And I think that's a great way to begin to think about it. What do you want people to say about you as a professional when you're not around? What makes you different from your competitors? What's special about your relationships with your clients? The answer to these questions are the foundation to your personal brand development. And here are some other exercises that you can do to get the ball rolling. The first one is to take a personal audit. Make a list of 10 words that describe you as authentically as possible. And if there's a word you wish you could include, but no, you just can't, that indicates a space for growth. I did this when I was starting my brand development journey. And so some of the words that I used were enthusiastic, engaged. I wanted people to view me as knowledgeable and as a leader. And so I thought about ways that I can incorporate those words into my brand identity. Secondly, get specific. Think about the gifts, talents, credentials, and experience that set you apart from other people in your field. And use those to develop a phrase that encapsulates the real you. Think of this as your personal tagline. And finally, build your network. Find groups and people who are willing to spread good news about you. Building brand awareness is not something you can do by yourself. So think, are you aligned with other influencers representing similar values? What rooms do you need to be in that you're currently avoiding? There was a time I had to sell advertising for my magazine before the magazine launched. I had to secure a certain amount of advertising dollars before the magazine could even go to print for the first time. And I remember sitting across from the owner of a day spa trying to cast a vision for what this magazine was going to be. And we had a good meeting, but I could tell it just wasn't landing the way I wanted it to. Finally, he said, "I don't know if this magazine is going to work. I'm not convinced of that. But what I am convinced of is that you're going to work hard to make sure that it does." He committed to be an advertiser for a year, and it was with that sale that I reached the threshold to be able to print the magazine. So when it finally came out for the first time the next month, I visited all the advertisers that were a part of that inaugural issue. And I went to the spa owner, and he told me he was proud of me and of what we had accomplished together. It was clear to me that he bought into my brand before he even bought into the idea of the magazine. You know, these days, everyone is a brand. That's why you can't afford to skip taking the time and effort it takes to develop what you want your brand identity to be. What's the story being told when you're not in the room? When someone takes a meeting with you because they already know who you are and what you stand for, you've arrived. You're no longer someone who just sells. You're someone who sells inspired.